Good evening and welcome to the February 6th meeting of the City of Vista Planning Commission. Commissioner Bell, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Turley, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Okay, I've got it. Okay, let the record show that all the commissioners are present with the exception of Deborah Kramer, and both student commissioners are present.
Very good. The next item on our agenda, Commissioners, is the approval of the minutes from our January 16th meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes? If not, can we hear a motion to approve? Commissioner Carroll.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Commissioner Garrison.
I would second that motion.
Very good. It's been moved and second to approve the minutes of the January 16th meeting. Please cast your vote. And the minutes are approved unanimously of the members that are present. The next item on the agenda is agenda changes. Mr. Connolly, any changes to the agenda?
No, Chairman.
Okay. Oral communications is next. This is a time on the agenda that we reserve for comments from the public that are on items that are not on the agenda. I have no speaker slips, and seeing no one else rising, we'll move on to our public hearings. In our public hearing items, if you wish to address the commission, you need to fill out a speaker slip and submit it to our secretary. And then when the time comes, when we open up the public hearing, I'll call you up to receive your testimony. So the first item on our agenda is the Stonemark annexation. Mr. Connolly, your staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This is an annexation reorganization request for a parcel in the County Island area. The map is shown on the overhead. It's a 28.1 acre site. It consists of two legal parcels, APNs 169-211 and 169-220. One is a vacant lot with a 19-lot tentative subdivision map on it that was approved by the county. That's 25.8 acres. It's the larger lot. And one is a residence at 1314 Buena Vista Drive. That's a 2.3 acre lot with a single-family home on it. These properties are generally located east of Buena Vista Drive, south of Mar Vista Drive, north of the city boundary there in Shadow Ridge area. This is our general plan map showing the property designated as rural residential. The city boundary is shown as a blue line there on the north and south sides of the property, so it connects on both sides. The general plan designation in all of the county island areas is rural residential, which is 1 unit per acre. The proposed zoning upon annexation would be A1 agricultural, which is also a 1 acre minimum lot size. A little bit of history behind the property, the larger property, the 25 acre site. The county approved a subdivision map on that property for 19 single family homes, residential lots in 2015. The property owner is currently processing a final map with the county to complete that map, and it's in process. We've been in correspondence with the county staff on that. At the time of the county's approval in 2015, the property was annexed into the Buena Sanitation District for sewer service. Because sewage from the project area flows into the City of Vista's system from Buena, an irrevocable offer of annexation was executed between the property owners and the city and the Buena Sanitation District to annex into Vista at any point in the future, which is what the city is now relying on. We're initiating that annexation to remove the property from the Buena Sanitation District and put it into the Vista Sanitation District, since that's the district that serves the flows from this area. And it would also remove the property from the Vista Fire Protection District. So the proposal before you this evening is just to change the jurisdictional boundaries and remove it from the BSD and the Vista Fire Protection District. Just to kind of give you some background, why is the city doing this? I've been asked that quite a bit. This map shows the city's sewerage system. It's fairly complicated, but I'll try to clarify. Buena Sanitation is shown with a blue line, and you can roughly see it running along the south limits of the property here and up, and it serves what was the Stone Gate development just east of here, and areas south in Shadow Ridge. So the majority of sewer flows in the Shadow Ridge area go to the south and into Buena's system, which runs out through Agua Hedionda. The area within the valley here flows to the west and into Oceanside sewer system, which ultimately flows into Vista sewer system and is served by Encina through Vista system, which flows along the Buena Vista Creek corridor. So in 2002 or 3, the city had a moratorium on annexations when the Stone Gate development to the east here was developed, and the agreement was to allow it to annex into Buena to receive sewer service, with the promise that it would annex into the city at some point in the future once we solve this problem with whether or not we would allow annexations. So around 2011, when we determined that annexations weren't affected by Prop 218, which was the reason the moratorium was started, we went back to these property owners and initiated an annexation proceedings to bring the Stonegate development into the city and solve the sewer flow transfer problem. What we found out is, although the developer had signed an IOA to annex into the city at any point in the future, these properties were now all subdivided and sold to 36 different property owners, and then we couldn't just tell them they had to annex into the city. We had to allow through the annexation process that LAFCO has for a vote and go with the majority proceeding. And so we can't really move that area back into Vista. The problem is the Buena district has slightly lower fees for service than the Vista district because it's a newer system and it costs less to maintain. And so by sewering it through Vista but paying Buena charges, you're basically subsidizing one district with the other. We also have to pay between the districts money to pay for this sewer service. And so it cleans it all up by putting it back into the city. The reason we're initiating it now before the map is completed and the lots are sold is because once that happens, we probably won't be able to do it and we'll be stuck with this situation forever. So we're trying to correct the sewer situation by bringing it into the city now. So the county has approved the tentative subdivision map for 19 lots. They used a lot averaging allowance to create smaller lots than 1 acre in size. This essentially calls for some preservation of a portion of the site in exchange for smaller clustering of lots. It's similar to what we do in our PRD ordinance. The overall density of 1 dwelling unit per acre is maintained. There's 19 lots. It's approximately a 25-acre site. However, the approved tentative map that the county approved in 2015 runs with the property, so the city cannot go back and modify the map or has any intent in doing that. We intend to solve the sewer problem by bringing it into the city and allowing it to develop in accordance with what the county originally approved. The setbacks on the property and the building heights in our A1 zone are identical to what the county zoning is, so it wouldn't affect the development of the properties in the future if it were to annex. And so we want everyone to recognize it doesn't really have any effect on the map. It's only the jurisdictional boundary change. The A1 zone that we're proposing does require 1 acre minimum lot sizes. There are some smaller lots that would be permitted. We would consider those legal non-conforming, and we've allowed that in other situations where there's some lots included in larger annexations that don't meet our minimum lot size. Our only option there would be to zone it E1 or half acre, and that would allow further subdivision in the future, so we're more comfortable sticking with the A1 zone. This is the map. It's included in your packet. I'm happy to get into the details, but essentially it allows for a private street extending east of Buena Vista Drive into the site, and the lots run along the north and south sides of the street. There's also the preservation, as I mentioned, in the southerly portion of the property for the drainage area, and a proposed trail that would extend from the end of the private street down to connect to, I believe it's Park Drive to the south. There's one adjacent property that's annexing as part of this project at 1314 Buena Vista Drive. The reason for that is that the grading plan from the tentative map would affect the leach field, the septic field from the existing home that's there. So the property owners agreed to connect to the sewer system along with the project and allow that grading to occur, and therefore they have to annex as well. So they're part of the application. Same thing proposed as a A1 zone. Doesn't change the use allowances that they have on the property currently, nor would it affect their property taxes upon annexation. Staff's reviewed this consistent with the general plan. It's designated rural residential. The density overall would not exceed that. There are some policies in the general plan that we have to evaluate when looking at annexations. It would be consistent with all those as identified here. It would reduce an island area. It would remain low-density residential. It was considered consistent with the surrounding land uses and development patterns at the time that the county approved the tentative map. We're not changing that. It would not result in a negative fiscal impact in terms of property tax generation upon development of the site, and it would include the infrastructure serving the annexed area, which is primarily the sewer and the road. The properties would be pre-zoned A1, and I mentioned it would be consistent with the approved tentative map. I mentioned there would be legal non-conforming lot sizes for those smaller than 1 acre and why that is. The setbacks and building heights, again, are consistent, and we're not proposing to change the prior approval to allow for intensification or any increased density. We're using an exemption under CEQA for annexation of existing lots because, again, we're not affecting the existing map, and the environmental impacts of the prior tentative map were fully evaluated by the county upon their approval, and we're not reopening that. So staff's requesting a recommendation for the City Council for this project. Following this meeting, we'll set a public hearing for the City Council to provide their final approval or consideration. And then it would, if approved, have to go before the Local Agency Formation Commission, which is the county body that reviews annexations. And that's my staff report. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. Any questions for Mr. Connolly from the Commission? Commissioner Jackal?
Thank you. Mr. Connolly, some of these letters that were up here for us have raised some questions for me. So one letter asks that the entrance to this project, if approved, would be from Park Hill Drive rather than from Buena Vista Drive. Due to the intense traffic at the intersection of Mar Vista and Buena Vista Drive, and evidently accidents. So is Park Hill Drive a possibility?
So I'm showing the map on the screen here that was approved by the county in 2015. We cannot affect any changes in that map. They went through a discretionary approval with the county's planning commission. That's their entitlement. We can't change that. They're working on final map with the county board of supervisors, which is most likely going to happen before we complete our annexation process. But that map entitles them to develop the property in accordance with what's shown, and we can't change that once they approve a final map.
Okay, my next question is probably can't be changed anyway, but that when clustering is used, then a conservation area should be established within the parcel. But with these larger lots, I'm assuming the lots will be sold to private parties and there won't be any conservation zone established.
On the map, there is shown, it's noted here in one of the letters, a limited building zone area in the canyon on the southerly portion of the property. and it's noted on the TM. On the final map, they'll have to delineate it, but it's hard to see here. It's noted on the tentative that there's a limited building zone in the slope areas below these lots, below the grading, and they wouldn't be able to develop those areas in the future. So the final map that the county approves will have either an open space easement or some kind of a dedication that they'll have to make to guarantee that, and the city would just be the enforcing agency, just like the county would be.
Okay, so there would be something.
That's what the county approved. Yes, that's on the current map.
Okay. And my last question, and this is just because I don't know, could you show me on a map where Stonegate is?
Sure. Sorry, I'm back here a little ways. Stonegate is just to the east of the project here. I think it's 36 or so single-family homes. They're all 1 acre in size.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Very good. Commissioner Carroll.
Thank you. Mr. Conley, so this is a county subdivision that's going to record shortly. Is that timing correct, that this map will record in the county prior to or with or without the annexation?
Yes, so it's much more complicated if the annexation occurs before they final their map. So they're working with the county to do that within the next couple months. If they complete that process, then we'll move forward with annexation shortly thereafter. If they don't, then we'll have to meet with the county. Typically, in consultation with LAFCO, that's handled through an agreement between the two agencies of how it's going to be completed. So we'd prefer to get the final map done before the annexation occurs.
Okay.
We have to go through this proceeding and the council before we get to LAFCO, so we're getting those done, but there's still time for them to complete their final map.
Okay, so if the annexation did not occur, there would still be there would still end up being 19 legal lots here, similar to this tentative map.
Correct.
Right, and so our purview tonight is really just the annexation of the property and annexation into the sewer and fire, or sewer district and city fire services.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Garrison.
Yes, Mr. Conley, on page 2 of 42, the top paragraph, last sentence, says, based on consultation with LAFCO, once the Stonemark property is subdivided and the 19 new homes are occupied, annexation to the city would require the consent of majority of the property owners. So if we recommend to the city council approve it, the owners can turn it around and say, no, we want to stay with the county.
Correct. The LAFCO proceeding requires a vote of the majority of property owners in the occupied area that's being annexed. So once the map is approved and then finalized and developed and the homes are sold and there's 19 new homeowners, we'd have to have a majority vote.
So why are we even voting on it? If the homeowners, once they're there, have final approval.
Well, it's highly likely that they won't want to annex into the city at that time. That's the experience that we had to the east with Stonegate. Go ahead.
Mr. Conley, Commissioner Garrettson, there is only one annexation process, and so once it goes to LAFCO and LAFCO approves it, it's final. So if LAFCO acts prior to the time there's actually residents living in the built homes, then the LAFCO action is determined by the landowner. And so that's the anticipation. If for some reason the annexation had not occurred and the homes are later on built and occupied, at that point, the actual residents would be the ones to have the right to vote on the matter.
I'm not sure I understand. This says they vote on it.
Well, that
Looks like the owners, once the property is built, have final approval.
if it has not already been annexed, and so
Okay,
yes.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Bell.
Thank you. Forgive my ignorance of county procedure, but has there been any, excuse me, any sort of public hearing similar to this for this map with the county for the approval? Is there a process that they go through to reach the final map as well?
Exact same process as we do. Their planning commission approves tentative subdivision maps, so this map did go before the county's planning commission in 2015.
Okay, so in 2015, this went forward, county approved, the planning commission and the county approved and passed it on to Board of Supervisors or whoever signs off?
Correct.
Okay. And it sounds like I understand there's probably some people frustrated and concerned with what's going to happen with the development, and it sounds like that issue is pretty separate and apart from the annexation that we're deciding tonight. If we're going with the hypothetical of annexation prior to a final map approval, assume everything moves super fast in government, which we know it doesn't all the time, and we annex right away before a final map is approved. You said that the process becomes a lot more complicated on both sides, or how does that work?
Correct. The approving agency for the final map is the city council or board of supervisors. So typically you get your tentative approved and then you go to that board or that city council to get your final approved. When you split jurisdictions between those two, it can complicate it. Are there new rules involved? Is the city going to impose requirements that the county didn't impose? Are you going to take away protections that the county put in there? So our preference would be not to even open that issue at all and have the final map approved by the Board of Supervisors before we complete this process. They're in process with the county. They've indicated it's going to be done fairly soon, so we don't expect that to be a problem.
And that process with the county already went through the CEQA requirements, if they exist?
At the tentative map stage, the CEQA process applies, correct?
Okay, because I know we said Vista has a waiver, or we're not required to do that just by annexation, but that process has been done at some point in this development.
Correct. They
Okay.
did do environmental review. The county also relied on an exemption, but that was a determination that the county made as the lead agency. We're looking at this action as the annexation only, not a project evaluation for our purposes of environmental approval.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner Garrison?
Yeah, just, Mr. Connolly, one question. This little area right here. Oh, no batteries. That little area that kind of sticks out there down the bottom, is
Sure.
that for some drainage or
That's
what?
where the
what is-
sewer line's located.
Pardon?
That's where the sewer line is located. You can see the green line there on the map is the sewer that serves the adjacent development that this
So
project
they
will
have to
connect
annex that in order to run the sewer line?
Well, it's part of their property.
Oh, it is?
Correct.
Existing?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Very good. I had just a couple of questions for you then. The Board of Directors for the Buena District are?
Yes, so we have a unique situation in Vista. I think unlike any other city in the county where we have two sewer districts under our roof. One is City of Vista, which was created when the city incorporated, and one is Buena, which was a county special district that the city took over when Shadow Ridge was annexed. And I don't know, timing, it was 80s, I think. It's a newer district. It has different rules than the Vista district. In Buena, you can get service without being in the city. But if you're going into Vista sewers, you have to be in the city of Vista.
Right.
So it's fairly complicated, but in terms of the reason for this predicament we're in is essentially for that exact reason. They're both under one jurisdictional body, the city.
Super. In the northwest corner of the property outlined in red, there is a triangular piece that's
Here.
off-site. In looking at one of the maps, it appeared to me that that would become a county island.
It would.
Okay, and would LAFCO add it to the proceedings just to clean up the map, or?
So when we go to LAFCO, we have to show that we've surveyed the surrounding area to determine whether or not they're interested in annexing. So we sent a letter out. It's included in your packet.
Right.
Back in, I think, October or November, asking the residents in the surrounding area to the east that would be further within an island as a result of this proposal if they were interested in annexing. And we received back about maybe 50 or 60%. And the resounding indication was that no one's interested. There were a few people that were interested, but they're not
Contiguous.
attached to this lot, and so if they're not contiguous, yeah, we wouldn't be able to include them.
Okay. And on the approved project, I'm assuming that there's going to be a homeowners association that's going to maintain the private road and the open space?
Correct, and the drainage infrastructure and all the other private improvements on the property.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Conley. I do have a number of requests to speak. Ms. Chow, I think we'll run the timing clock. So you'll have 3 minutes to address the commission on your views on the annexation. That's the only thing that is up for consideration before this commission tonight. So first person is Claudia Falk. Could you pull the microphone closer
To me? Okay, my name is Claudia Falk, and I have a property that once you annex 1314 will be right next to that. So, and I realize, obviously you just mentioned that we're just talking about the annexation, but I'm concerned about that road because when we've lived on Fern Place for 30 years now, and when we heard about this property coming in, it was going to the housing, or the street coming in was Park, and that there would be no impact on Buena Vista. And that road is awful. It's terrible. They've got that awful curve, and that many more houses. You're looking at probably 260 people coming in and out of there, even if it is only 19 or whatever. Plus, you have that other little thing that you're putting in where the church is, and that curve. When we first moved there was a car off the side of the road at least once a month, and I know they fixed it somewhat, but it's not a street that should have that many more cars on it. And I don't know, it's really, frightening to me to see that. I'm glad you're keeping it at 1 acre lots, but I'm concerned about that street. And I don't know how to address the county because, again, I thought they had said it was coming through Park because then it would be part of Shadow Ridge.
Definitely not the design of the map. So, thank you. Next speaker is Joyce Boyd.
Hi there. Thank you for seeing me, Chairman.
Could you pull the microphone down in front of
Hi,
you? please?
my name is Joyce Boyd, and I want to thank you all for hearing me. My property is right up against that piece, and as she was saying about the Buena Vista, I understood that this was supposed to be coming in off Park Hill. I never saw the plans where it came in on Buena Vista. I'm not happy about it. I'm telling you, it's going to be a nightmare in there, and we're going to be under construction for years, is what I'm seeing here. The other thing that I'm seeing, as of right now, it's a fire hazard. It's been sitting for 2 years. It used to be turned constantly with an agricultural of some sort of crop. It's been sitting for 2 years. It's extremely overgrown. It's putting all of these homes in that entire area at fire risk right now, as of today. It needs to be taken care of immediately, if not sooner, because my house is right up against it. The other issue that I have is with regards to the proposal that he's making with the city of Vista versus the county with regards to the sewage. Most of these homes are on septic at this time, and I don't know if that makes any difference with how this plumbing is going to work, is what we're talking about is plumbing, if I understand. I don't see this many homes coming in there as being effective or efficient or helping the area at all. I think it's going to cause a big conflict, and you're going to have years and years of everybody in this area not able to move around. There's only 2 ways into where my house is. And what you're going to do is stop me from getting in and out of my house for a couple of years. And I don't want that happening. I'm a business person. I own a business, and I need to be able to get access in and out of my area every day. So if it's going to create a conflict for us as homeowners, got to figure out something to make us able to get in and out of there and not interfere with our progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly, is it Fischetti?
Hello. We, in our neighborhood, were against this project on every level from the beginning, and we tried to fight the city or the county on it. I live right at the corner of Mar Vista and Buena Vista, and I actually talked to the traffic guy in the city wanting to get our street gated because we've got like 4,000 cars a day going through there shortcutting to Mar Vista because they don't want to take Sunset to Mar Vista. And I felt like we were giving very little notice, just like we were given very little notice for this hearing tonight. So I just last week contacted the people in the Sunset group and said, is anybody going to this meeting? I just heard about it. And then I called the city planner, and he said they've been talking about this since 2015. And yet we just got a notice about 7 days ago. So I think that's extremely unfair. I agree with a couple other speakers. You know, they're saying that this development doesn't affect the neighborhood, that it blends in with the neighborhood. And I'm just imagining, 19 red tile roofs next to, that's always been agricultural. Everybody there has at least acre property. And since if we're going to do this, then I think the city has to take responsibility for what the county has done. And I guess my question, if I want lot averaging right across the street, will I be able to get it when I apply for that? So, and I'm guessing the answer would be no, just off the top of my head. And when we went to the county and to the meeting, honestly, the developers were practically high-fiving the Board of Supervisors on the way out. So, I mean, I don't know what goes on there. I don't know why they would be exempt from an environmental study, like how that cannot affect that neighborhood. And I also 100% think it should dump out to Park Hill Drive. And that's what they said it was going to do, and then it became inconvenient for them. So then the county said, okay, fine, you can go out to Buena Vista. And that street it didn't always be so dangerous, but it's becoming increased. People run that three-way stop. I can sit there and count car after car after car, running it, and then they're going to have people coming out to Buena Vista, and it's just going to be really a danger to the community, and it's going to be really sad that the guy that lives there who's been farming that land, and I realize the county approved it, and you guys are saying there's nothing we can do about that, but I feel like if you're going to annex them, then you have to take responsibility for what the county is doing. And what is Stonemark going to offer the city by doing this, I guess would be my other question. Are they going to put sidewalks all around Buena Vista? What kind of offering would they get? And in my opinion, I don't want to make this easy for Stonemark in any way. So I'm totally against it.
Okay, thank you. Gary Pearson?
My name is Gary Pearson. I live at 1316 Buena Vista Drive with my wife, Marilyn. And I'm not that interested in the traffic problem. Do you have a map of this here? Right here? Plot plan? That's a sewer map. Okay, there it is. This piece here is my piece. I'm going to be an island, right? And I'm interested in becoming part of the Vista. So instead of being county, I'll be an island on the Thomas Brothers map, But I'm interested in being county, and so is this piece here. We were having private meetings on becoming part of Vista, and I didn't make it to the meetings. But what I have is this piece here I bought in 1985. In 1982, it used to be a chicken ranch, and the people who owned it had power to the chicken ranch. There's an easement on my map here showing the easement for power. And all I'm looking for is to get an easement back so I have power. This road here is below my property, and I guess that's proposed sewer. And this is all rock. I don't know who's going to build on that. And then This is a private road going to this house here that's going to be annexed to in the city of Vista. But these people are going to get sewer, and I'm on septic too. So if I get annexed, get septic, I'm all for it, or sewer, I'm all for it, get off
Okay.
septic.
All right,
But what I'd like is just,
what I suggest that you do after the meeting is get a hold of Mr. Connolly and see if your property can be added to the proceedings.
Okay.
Should we discuss that tonight, Mr. Connolly, and make that as part of the recommendation to the council, since he's asking for it here?
and also the place next to me is the Cactus Farm. They also want to be annexed.
Okay.
So, I mean, you know, he can just search that himself. I myself am present, so.
Okay.
But why be an island, like you said?
So according to the city attorney, you can include that in your motion if you want to
Okay.
allow for it.
All right. Mr. Pearson?
Yes, sir.
We'll discuss it amongst the commissioners, but I think we'll make a recommendation to the city council to include your property in the annexation.
Okay, does that include the sewer hookup? 'Cause-
And that would provide you access to the sewer. You're
electricity?
still going to have to pay for that, and it's
Oh,
rather
yeah,
expensive.
I
but-
got that. I got a septic system that cost me about $8,000, so.
Okay.
I'm sure hooking up 20 feet from my property line, which is easement on that side, plus easement on the Buena Vista side. But all I want is electricity, really, and access to electricity.
Very good.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Catherine Marcus? All right.
Thanks so much for letting us speak about this tonight. And already I have to commend you all because you've given, I can tell, a lot more thought and you're asking a lot more, shall we say, perceptive questions than the county folks did. Let's see, together with the approximately 164 neighbors in the Sunset Island Neighbors Group who signed our petition to the county back in 2015, I respectfully ask the Vista Planning Division to take a step beyond the limited building zone that the County Planning Commission designated on this parcel and try to preserve that same zone as a true dedicated conservation zone. I have to address the question that Commissioner Jekyll, forgive my pronunciation, asked. To my knowledge, sir, and I respectfully am going to address the answer that you gave here, when I asked this very same question as to whether or not that zone could be developed or built upon, et cetera, Ms. Beth Ason, I'm probably slaughtering that name too, at the County Planning Department, said that the LBZ, the limited building zone imposed by the Planning Commission, will not prohibit clearing or landscaping. She specifically answered that question to me, anyway, by saying that it is really, in that sense, not a conservation area. They can landscape it in any way they please, pretty much like any suburban backyard is I think the term that she used. We ask also that no decision be made about this project this evening because, as you've heard from other speakers, our neighborhood's residents have not had sufficient time to review the implications and consequences of the proposed annexation. Our initial concerns, as was discussed earlier a bit, include the fact that the developer is using this clustering concept for this parcel in order to obtain an exemption from our neighborhood's 1 acre minimum zoning. And they want to do that so as to create several half-acre lots so that they can fit in more lots. However, they're leaving out the essential partner to clustering, which is the conservation. Standard design practice requires that when clustering is used on a parcel, then a conservation area should be established within that parcel. The Endangered Habitats League, a biologist with them, said, quote, "We are concerned about the mechanisms proposed to achieve the preservation component of the subdivision." Is that my time up? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you so much for listening. And the rest of my comments, as well as those of the neighborhood, are included in some documents that Ms. Turley very kindly took from us at the last minute today. Thank you.
You're welcome. And our last speaker is Gavin Bolby.
Yes, hi there. Thanks for the my name is Gavin Bowlby. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. In addition to the concerns that we, the Sunset Island Neighbors Group, have submitted in other documents, I'd like to point out a few other things. Several environmental groups objected to the county's exemption of this property from CEQA. Our neighborhood's historic rural character will be adversely affected by this project. Our neighborhood holds a rich legacy as a wildlife habitat and farmland, which will forever be lost if this project is allowed to proceed according to the current plans. According to an Audubon Society biologist we spoke with that Katerina mentioned, the proposed Stonemark property drains to the Buena Vista Lagoon watershed and has not been properly evaluated for its watershed impact. Archaeologists who have evaluated the properties as part of the county application process also found evidence that the properties were a significant Native American heritage site. The properties contain a long-standing view shed for surrounding neighbors that will be lost if it is developed as currently planned. Many neighbors presented valid and well-researched concerns regarding the dangerous increase in traffic on narrow, winding Mar Vista Road. New residents wanting to reach Highway 78 will travel that route. If this project is allowed to continue as it is currently planned, and if the City of Vista allows annexation without further review, it will be one more North County treasure lost. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. That concludes our public speakers. And I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing then and open it up for discussion amongst the commissioners. Commissioner Garrison?
Yes, just a question. We've had several speakers ask to delay this. Is that something we could do if we chose to do it?
Sure.
And also, even if we didn't delay it, everybody would have an opportunity to speak to the city council about this before it was approved, correct? So this would not be the speaker's last opportunity to object to this.
Correct. We have to have a public hearing at the city council that will follow the planning commission's recommendation.
Thank you.
Commissioner Looney?
What I'm understanding is that the purpose or the reason this is coming before the City of Vista is basically a sewer issue. Is
Correct.
that correct? So the sewer system can be connected to that system which the city owns and maintains.
Correct.
The opinions and comments that we've heard from the public this evening have probably been made to the county since 2015. Am I correct?
I'm assuming so, yeah, based on
Okay.
the correspondence that I saw in the county's record.
So I think this has already been stated once. If this was already a developed parcel of land and the city was asked to annex that for the sewer system, the city can't undo what was already previously approved. Am I understanding this correct?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood the real issue. Thanks, John.
Commissioner Jackal?
Thank you. I understand this is about the sewer, but I'm still concerned about the preservation area. Is that going to be able to be preserved as is, or are people going to be able, the new owners, are they going to be able to plow it up and landscape it and do whatever?
So as the speaker pointed out, it's a limited building zone, so it limits building within those areas, but it does allow them to landscape or do grading that would be approved by the jurisdiction that covers the area. The way that the limited building zone will be implemented will be through some type, probably easement on each property that the county will approve as part of the final map. So that's all in the county's hands.
So there's nothing we can do about that.
Again, unless we annex the property before the final map were completed and decide to impose our own conditions on the project, then no, there's nothing we can do. The staff's not recommending going through that process since this project was approved by the county. We weren't intending on reopening the county's evaluation of the map. We were simply trying to solve the sewer problem. If the commission's not comfortable with that, you can recommend against it. That's okay. We would have to go through the process, though, and get your formal recommendation before we move it to LAFCO.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Carroll.
Thank you, Chairman. So once the map records in the county, does the city have the ability upon annexation of imposing further conditions on those legal lots?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the portion to address the other members as well, commissioners, right?
Yes.
Okay. Then I would just say my feelings on this are looking strictly at the annexation issue. It seems to be straightforward, and there's a good reason for it for the city to annex this. It makes a lot of sense. I would tend to vote yes for this simply because of the annexation issue and what I'm being asked to decide. Having said that, the lack of a sequel report really, really bothers me. I wasn't at the county hearings. I don't know what the history is, but the fact that that was jumped over for whatever reason, it just doesn't sit right with me. I don't know the solution to that other than understanding that the public's reaction is understandable, and I hear you on that. I don't think we have the power to immediately change that here. But those are my thoughts and feelings on that at this point.
Very good. Very good. Here are my thoughts. I tend to agree with Commissioner Bill. We've got a limited focus tonight on what we're being asked to do, and that's recommend to the City Council on this annexation. Our general plan and the county's general plan allow for 1 acre lots. This is 25 acres. It's got 19 lots, so it's got less units than if they came in with a 25 unit subdivision. I hesitate in doing this, but this is a very good example of why the people in the Sunset Island should annex to the city of Vista, because you can come here and talk to us, and we will listen to you for the most part. When we can, within the constraints of what our general plan and zoning allows us to do. But I can pretty much assure you that this would have never gotten a categorical exemption here in the city. We would have done extensive environmental review, and it's a prime reason why you need to think about being part of the city of Vista. You have access, better access, I think, to local government than you do with the county. So that's just my 2 cents worth as a citizen of Vista. So the other issue is Mr. Pearson's property at 1316 Buena Vista. I personally, he asked, I would recommend that he be included in the proceedings so he can get sewer access.
So just to clarify for the commission's consideration, we are okay with including that in your recommendation tonight, but we do want to evaluate it. That's going to change our process with LAFCO, and we'll certainly follow up with Mr. Pearson. But
Sure.
if it does and requires additional steps for us, we may not include that property.
Okay, all right. But Mr. Pearson is free to make his own application for annexation if that comes about.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Any further discussion? Commissioner Garrison.
Is there a cost to Mr. Pearson to become part of an annexation to Vista?
If he's part of this application, most likely no. But if he has a separate application on his own, then yes, he has to pay fees through the city and LAFCO.
So it would definitely be in his best interest to try to make him part of this annexation. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Looney.
Just a comment, too, about the county process. I work with the county as a private person a lot, and I would have hoped that the neighborhood would have just come out in force at those public hearings. I know the county has their ways of operating and getting things done, but I would have hoped that the same type of interest and much, much more took place at those county public hearings, because I know they send out public notices, and they do have an opportunity for individuals to speak. So I just encourage you, again, as Ms. Rosler has done, make your voice known, whether it's at the county level or at the city level, because that's the only way things are going to change. So that was all. Thanks.
Okay. All right, commissioners, are you ready to make a motion and a decision? Commissioner Carroll?
Thank you, Chairman. So before I make my motion, I will just add my personal feelings, not that they're worth anything in this decision, but yeah, this project, you know, in the city of Vista or in a better case scenario would have been coming in off Park Hill, and it would have, if using the this clustering scenario, would have preserved some actual dedicated open space. That's what we typically see, and I think it's a shame, but it's really, from what I can tell, there's nothing that this commission can do about that, and we can only address this as a straight annexation issue. And with that, I'll make a motion to approve planning case P18-0014 as written regarding annexation of property and annexation into the sewer district.
You going to add Mr. Pearson's property at 1316 Buena Vista?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. Commissioner Carroll's made a motion. Commissioner Garrison?
I would second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and second. Any further discussion? All right, please cast your vote. And the resolution is passed on a 6-to-1 vote with Commissioner Jackal voting no.
Just clarification, 5-1 with one absent commissioner.
With Commissioner Kramer absent. Okay? So 5-to-1. Very good. Okay, thank you very much. At this point, we're going to take a 5-minute break. The students from Rancho, if you want to come up, we will sign your forms at this point. Yeah, that's.
I think I'm going to do a phone number on it, but they're asking for that? Yeah, man, I'll see you around. All right, see you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the downtown specific plan, discussion of the allowable land uses, and Mr. Conley, your staff report, please.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. This is a revisit of the downtown specific plan to look at the residential neighborhoods that are encompassed within the plan based on some concerns that we've received from the Commission and the Council. So this is a map of the specific plan area for the downtown specific plan. It covers about 284 acres. It includes 6 different planning districts. I know you're all very familiar with it. Our discussion tonight focuses on 4 residential neighborhoods that are within the Transit, West Gateway, and Paseo Santa Fe districts. And all the property owners that are the subject of those neighborhoods were notified for this discussion tonight. So I'm going to go through and cover the geographic location of each of the neighborhoods and talk about some of the characteristics and show some photos of those areas. And then if it's okay with the Commission, maybe we can go back through them individually and discuss what you want to affect. So the first area is we're calling the Transit District East. This is generally located north of Vista Village Drive and east of North Santa Fe, actually just east of the affordable housing development that's there in the left side of the photo. It includes city-owned block between North Indiana and North Michigan that has a Lifeline facility on it, and that's shown, it's shown here. It's the whole block between Washington, Indiana, and Michigan, Vista Village. Primarily dominated by 1- and 2-story residences, a mix of single and multifamily units, and some partially improved streets. And this is kind of some photos of the neighborhood showing there are a fair amount of sidewalks. Most of it has curb and gutter, but there are some limited sidewalks in portions of the neighborhood. There is on-street parking available, though, in portions of this neighborhood compared to the others we're going to look at. Still some vacant lots, too, you can see in the upper right-hand corner there. The second area is a Transit District West. This is the area north of Vista Village Drive, generally west of the Transit Center, off of Olive, and east of Camino Corto. It does not include the commercial properties fronting Vista Village Drive. It's back in off of Terracina, Getting Way, and Camino Patricia primarily. Again, 1- and 2-story residences. This area is mostly single-family units with some multifamily mixed in, and largely unimproved streets, lack of curb, gutter, and sidewalk, and very limited, if any, street parking. Most of the street parking is just fronting the street on the private property and, paved areas. And this shows the current conditions in the majority of this area. That's Getting Way on the left, and I believe that's Terracina on the right, and I'm not sure the middle one there. I believe that's also Getting. The next area is West Gateway Plymouth. This is a small neighborhood that's just in the far western portion of the plan. It's behind the Mr. A's liquor store center there at the corner of Plymouth and Vista Village. It's about 10 parcels or so, but because it's part of the plan, it also has this high density allowance. It's mostly 1- and 2-story homes, single family in nature, and again, unimproved streets along Plymouth Drive. This is just the frontage of those homes. There's some street parking out here, but it's somewhat limited just based on extra paved areas on the edge of Plymouth. The fourth and last neighborhood is what we call the Palo Vista neighborhood. It's in the Paseo Santa Fe planning district, generally located west of Civic Center and south of Mercantile along Palo Vista Drive. 1- and 2-story residences, again, a mix of single and multifamily development, and mostly unimproved streets. There is some curb and gutter near the commercial center and in stretches of this street, and there is some street parking just based on extra paved areas you can see on the photo here of Palo Vista, but it's fairly limited in terms of available parking or improvements for that matter. So the zoning and development standards that apply to all of these areas are in the specific plan are mixed use, which allow commercial or residential in any of these locations. All the neighborhoods currently allow up to 40 dwelling units per acre and up to 60 feet in building height. The parking standards have not been modified in the downtown specific plan, so they are as originally approved when we last updated the plan in 2015. And those are shown here, 1.25 for a studio and 1 bedroom, 2.25 for a 2-bedroom, and 2.75 for a 3-bedroom. Setbacks in these areas are 0 to 5 feet in the front. They all have 0 side yards and 15-foot rear yards. There was also a map included in your packet that's shown here that identifies what the densities are throughout the plan, as well as the maximum building heights. You can see we've revised some building heights in certain areas of the plan and reduced them, but not in any of these residential neighborhoods. It's all still at 60. So following early design review of some of the multifamily projects in these neighborhoods, the staff was asked to review the zoning and development standards in the plan to determine if there were any changes warranted. Shown in the lower portion of the slide here are a couple of development proposals that have come before you and the staff for early design review. On the left is the development of an 8-unit apartment off of Terracina Way that came before the Commission for Early Design Review. I think it was late last year. And on the right is a proposed apartment development for, I believe it's 5 units off of Palo Vista Drive. 10 units off of Palo Vista Drive, which is again a 3-story model and kind of a modern architectural theme. So just to touch on the RHNA, so it was included in the report. Our housing element in our general plan requires that we provide zoning to allow for affordable housing in the city. And our regional housing needs assessment is how we determine what those zoning numbers are, what the number of units you have to accommodate are. So in every housing element, there's a housing sites inventory, which basically identifies all the sites in the city that you could put additional housing on or that could be developed with affordable. The inventory assumes 423 residential units could be built in these specific residential neighborhoods in addition to what's already there. And so if we're going to change the standards that apply to these areas, we're going to have to find other locations in the city that we could put those 423 units. So it's just something we're going to have to consider as part of a possible change. That would occur, by the way, the next time we update our housing element, which is planned for 2021. For those of you that'll be here, it's a great time. So the staff is just tonight requesting input from the commission related to any recommended changes that you'd like to see in the plan. We focused on the residential neighborhoods, but the floor is open for any comments that you have with respect to the standards that apply within the plan itself. We have notified again all the residences that are affected within the neighborhoods that we're discussing tonight, but we haven't done a notification of the entire specific plan area. Following the commission's recommendations tonight, the staff will present the same item to the City Council to receive final direction, and then if there are changes directed, we'll come back through the Planning Commission for formal amendment, as well as the City Council for final consideration. So that completes my staff report, and I'm available to walk through these areas individually if you'd like.
Okay. We have 3 speaker slips. Would it be appropriate to take them now, and then we'll open it up to commission discussion?
Sure.
Rosie Cooper.
Hi, thank you for having me tonight, Commissioners. My name is Rosie Cooper. I'm the owner of the property at 150 Terracina Way, which is located in the Transit District West neighborhood. Approximately 2 years ago, my husband and I purposefully invested in the property within the downtown specific plan because of the opportunity for redevelopment of the property. Similar to the housing stock immediately surrounding our property, the 2 duplexes we own on Terracina Way were built in 1954. Given the aging housing stock here, we believe the communities surrounding our property can benefit from new housing opportunities that are made possible under the current downtown specific plan. Increasing the parking ratios and further restricting new development within the area may unintentionally disincentivize new development and investment. Due to the small lot size in the area, meeting the higher parking ratio is extremely difficult given site layouts and will prevent the redevelopment of sites within this community. Property owners will choose instead to simply renovate the interior of the existing residential units in the area, and no new development will occur. While the changes you are considering to the specific plan may satisfy your current concerns, the decision should be weighed with the potential implication of delaying investment in the community and denying the community of much-needed new housing stock.
Thank you. Steve McLean?
As you've already heard, I'm Steve McLean. What I'm really concerned with is the issue of parking. When we allow closer
Your address so we know.
Thank you.
Kind of where you're talking about.
Sure. What do you want to know?
Address.
Oh, on Palm Drive.
Okay.
So I would be in the, I guess, western or eastern part of the transit area. When we get so much parking in an area, what ends up happening, and because of the cost of housing going up, we have a lot of apartments and single family and duplexes in the area that the landlords are actually evicting people, upgrading their apartments, but to pay for it, you're moving in 2 or 3 families in each one of these units. Each one of those families has 1 or 2 cars. And I don't know where you got those pictures, Mr. Connolly, of the streets without cars on them, because they're just literally, people wait for hours for somebody to pull out so that they can pull in. So what I think should happen to cure the problem at the source is we have to put in, I would think, an amendment into the law or the construction that says that if you have your rental agreement with this one family, you can't move in 3 more families or 6 more cars, or there is a penalty. So if you're going to go for the plan, in the plan itself should say limited to this many cars. If it's found that you're subletting 3 other families in there and they have 6 cars, you must pay the city of Vista for the cost of the enforcement to tell you you've done bad. You're running down the neighborhood with 16 cars and nobody has a place to park. And I'll just finish on this note. There are so many places, commissioners, that people actually get in fights because they watch for when that car's going to move out, and it's on city property. Why are we paying for this? So that a landlord can fill his pockets full while the quality of life in the whole neighborhood goes down. Thank you very much. And thank you, Miss Jackal, for saving my artwork a couple of times ago. I remember you.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Lev Gershman.
Gershman, thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Lev Gershman. Our business used to be located in downtown Vista. We recently moved to central San Diego. I live at 5363 Bragg Street in San Diego. I wanted to talk to you about the specific plan. We think you have a great vision for the specific plan. Our firm is an investment management company for real estate, and one of the things we do is development on a very selective basis for projects that we think have community impact, and we do them because it's a way for us to give back to the community. We've done 2 projects in downtown Vista. One is 150 East Broadway, which has the mural. The other is 227 East Broadway, which is the former one-day shoe repair. We see a tremendous opportunity for downtown. We're working on a 3rd project within the Arts and Culture District. We're very interested in it because we think it could bring to life and anchor the Arts and Culture District, which is right now just mostly the Paseo Santa Fe, but really it's a stretch between Civic Center and Vista Village Drive. That particular stretch of road, more than almost half of the parcels along Paseo Santa Fe are under 5,000 square feet. And developing those parcels is challenging because they're very small. Assembling them is very lengthy because they're privately owned. So we'd love to see that vision fulfilled. And my question to you is, would you consider reducing the size of the parking stall requirement by 12 inches? The City of San Diego parking stall sizes are 8 by 18 feet, and the City of Vista is 9 by 19 feet. And some of these tight sites make it very, very difficult to park to code, which we're intending to do. So that's my question, and I hope you consider that. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Commissioners, that's the only speaker slips we have for this item. I thought we should go back and talk about each one of the planning areas individually and give our thoughts and input on those. So Mr. Conley has the Transit District East up there. So any thoughts or comments about it? While you're doing that, let me tell you a story. Well, no. You all know that I used to work for the City of Chula Vista, and the Otay Ranch was our project, or my project. We were attempting to build a series of villages that were pedestrian-oriented and served by transit. And so in reviewing all that, I joined an organization called the Congress for New Urbanism, CNU. And I attended their conferences, so I have been going, I retired 10 years ago, but prior to that, I went to at least 10 conferences ranging from Portland to and Washington to Miami. So I've probably seen 20, 30 mixed-use projects throughout the nation. And I took what I learned there and I took it back to Chula Vista, and we tried to apply it to the Otay Ranch. So mixed use is something that's very, as I've said here before, very complicated to do. And I think only parcels that have on-street parking in front of them and a strong pedestrian corridor should be designated mixed use. I think South Santa Fe is a great example. It's going to work there when the whole thing gets finished. I think our downtown area is a prime location for mixed use because there's a strong pedestrian connection. Some of the neighborhoods, not so much, but they're within a quarter mile of the transit station, which is the distance that people will walk to catch a train. So while I'm struggling with mixed use on the property, I'm not opposed to the density. So I don't know if we recommend to the council that we change the designation to eliminate mixed use and call it transit density, allowing 40 dwelling units per acre. And that's like 1 dwelling unit per 1,000 square feet. So the other thing in this particular neighborhood that I struggle with is the small lot sizes, and as Mr. Gershon said, assembling those and consolidating lots to build a bigger project is really difficult. But I think that's important because on some of the smaller parcels, you could only get 3 units at under 40 dwelling units per acre. So that's what I've been wrestling with all weekend since I got the staff report. So anyway, any other thoughts or comments? Commissioner Jackal.
Thank you. I'd like to start this off with my concern about all of these districts. And also, Mr. Conley, the project that we approved on East Vista Way, the Monarch apartment project, that's not included in what you're talking about tonight, is it?
No.
No. Okay, well, my concern overall is that we're not having enough places for people to park. For the Terracina Way project, with 10 dwelling units, that's a potential. If we have 2 couples, we were worried about the den becoming a bedroom. 2 couples in each unit, that's a potential of 40 cars. Where are they going to be? And there is no play space for children. For the Monarch apartments, and I know they'll be very fine quality, but the only way they could meet their parking, even with the reduced standards, was to borrow parking from the Vista Conservancy. That's just not good planning to me. And I almost don't even care about the density as long as we have enough parking so that we're not unintentionally causing more harm than we're doing good. So that's what I have to say.
Okay, any other comments on the Transit District East area? Thoughts, comments? I'd be curious about the economics of trying to build recycle property on a private basis. I would have thought at 40 dwelling units per acre, 1 dwelling unit per 1,000 square feet, we'd have people lining out the door to come and recycle these properties. But I mean, in the 5 years since the general plan's been adopted, we've had 2 or 3 projects.
Yeah, that's correct. We haven't had very many. It's a difficult thing to be able to pencil with the lot sizes and the requirements, even as they stand today on these smaller lots. It's really, I guess, depending on the value of the real estate, if it goes up, significantly, like you're seeing in some of the coastal areas, you could get a lot more activity. But where it is today, it's just not really that feasible from a financial perspective to buy a property, doze the home, and build a multifamily development, unless it's a sizable lot.
Okay. So any other comments on this area? All right, Mr. Conway, let's move on to the Transit District West.
This is the area that includes the proposed Terracina development that we talked about last time, which is kind of in the central northerly portion of the neighborhood.
In driving the neighborhood, I was somewhat impressed with the homes off Camino Patricia. It looked to me that they had been updated. They had paved driveways. They were, for the majority of them, nicely landscaped. And it appeared to me to be a pretty stable neighborhood. I consulted Zillow, and Zillow was telling me that the homes are in this neighborhood are somewhere between $400,000 to $500,000. So I thought it looked like a nice neighborhood and probably pretty stable, and could probably remain at its existing density. I know it's kind of stuck right in the middle of the transit district, but it looked like a neighborhood worth preserving. Off of Terracina Way, on the other hand, and Getting, those homes were not in the same condition, in my opinion, and were ripe, I think, for somebody redeveloping the area, as the young lady that spoke earlier, Ms. Cooper, is doing. But I think I had 2 concerns in this area. Number one is design, and I was wondering if in our specific plan, if we could provide additional design guidelines and maybe even examples of what we're after, what we think is good design. In some design guidelines, I've seen it where they've said this, not this. So at least they'd have an idea of what we were looking for. The other question I had about this neighborhood was, how can we get the street improved with curb and gutter and sidewalks?
Just show me the money.
Show me. Okay. So all that new, no.
I mean, that's really what it's about. It's just about funding. We have some available funding through CDBG funds that we can use in these areas if they meet the criteria for medium home price or medium income for the area. And I think all these areas along Vista Village and North Santa Fe do comply. But as you've noted, if you've driven through any portion of the neighborhoods north of here, we have a high number of city streets without improvements. So it's just done on a priority basis, and we generally look at those areas where there's the highest pedestrian activity when we're going to put in new sidewalks, and there's really quite a few areas in the town site north of here that have qualified.
Right. So in my mind, the neighborhoods off of Terracina Way should maintain the 40 dwelling units per acre. I don't think mixed use, looking for ground floor commercial with residential above makes a lot of sense here. It does, however, in the property adjacent between this area and the transit district, that would make a great location for a true mixed-use project where there's ground floor commercial that could serve the riders on both the bus and the transit, and then maybe have residential above. So that was my thought. I've got some commissioners that want to share their thoughts, and I'll stop talking. Commissioner Bell.
Thank you, Chairman. I think you started answering my question, Mr. Connolly, about the street improvements and parking, but in your experience or in your staff's experience, is there any pattern to changing the standards for specific neighborhoods that lead toward more income that would go toward streets? I know in Mrs. Cooper's case, we talked about having to improve the street in front of the building that she was seeking to rebuild, but that doesn't do much for the rest of the street. Do you have any insight or experience on how we can help other than cutting checks?
No, that's really it. We can't really impose those kind of requirements on a small development. There's no nexus, obviously. So it's really a question of, this is a public street up to a point. There are some private streets beyond that the private owners have the ability to improve, but, the city needs to put forward the money to improve the street and build sidewalk, curb, and gutter along with a number of other streets. When do we have that funding set aside? When does it become a priority for the council? Those are some questions, that probably will get a little bit further review as a result of this item, but there's still a lot of other streets that aren't getting looked at that have the same issue.
And I'll just add what Chairman Rossler was saying about the difference between the actual density that's there versus calling it mixed use and allowing for commercial. I don't see any benefit to allowing for commercial in most of these districts within a block and a half from the main areas. We've got a lot to fill before we get there. So at least for the immediate 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, it seems beneficial to allow more density. I know the Coopers are trying to build something, and that was something we talked about in the early design review, not specifically about their unit, but about height and parking and all those issues. It's going to be tough to be the first one or two that come into a neighborhood, but I would hope that with improvements would bring more improvement along behind whatever's being built. So I would be in favor of, I guess we can call it a new category, but I would definitely shy away from allowing what we've traditionally looked at as mixed use within these neighborhoods, as it stands now.
Commissioner Looney?
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. If we keep the mixed use along a major traffic corridor, I think that's reasonable. But on these off streets, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, a 60-foot building height, all of these areas, I'm again looking at Exhibit 4B, are single-family homes. You've got the highest structure that might be a 2-story, so you're 20, 24 feet in height. And on the size of the lots, if I have a 60-foot structure, it really diminishes the property value of that home that's 24 feet in height as a two-story structure. That just doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think you also create an environment that will deter further development. Unless you have someone come in and you buy 10 lots miraculously from 20 different owners because there are as many owners to a single lot. It's just so hard to develop, and I think it's going to kind of come back and get us. So, and you had made a comment about, Mr. Gresham, on parking lot sizes. I was contacted this last week from a civil engineering firm, local firm, about that same issue. Can we look at smaller parking spaces size? I didn't have an answer for him. I said, give me 2 site plans. Give me a site plan with the number of parking at the normal parking space size, and then let me see what the parking is at the diminished dimensions of that site. So I don't know what's going to happen, but at least it gives us some perspective on the reduced dimensions of a parking space in lieu of how many more parking spaces can we get on that particular property. So I think there's some area for creativity, but it comes down to money because they're not making any more dirt, and it's location and cost. So, thanks.
Okay, very good. I tend to agree. Any other comments on Commissioner Garrison?
Yeah, as I drove through these neighborhoods, I couldn't stop thinking about the people that live there, not somebody who's going to come in and develop it, but the people who live there, that are going to live there, and they're going to be there for another 30 years. And, somehow we have to protect them from these giant 60-foot buildings going in next to them. And as far as parking goes, I think having bigger parking spots saves so much in other ways, like your car dings and stuff like that I think you're just creating more problems if you reduce the parking spot or the parking size.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, let's move on to the West Gateway Plymouth area. Again, I would say no mixed use here, but if it looks like some of the lots are large enough that a high-density residential project would work. Maybe not at 40 dwelling units per acre. It's still within a quarter mile of the transit station. So maybe under our other residential designations, high density is 20 dwelling units per acre?
Correct, 21.
21 dwelling units per acre. So maybe this is a candidate area for 21 dwelling units per acre instead of the 40. But again, if somebody could get 40 dwelling units per acre and come in and build the project, when the development standards were proposed, did we as a commission understand that 40 dwelling units per acre allowed a 60-foot height limit?
It was generally evaluated as a 4-story height limit, but yeah, that was the comparison. The 60 feet was intended to accommodate 4 15-foot floors.
Yeah, because Don, once you go above 5 stories, don't you have to go to steel for your framing? The 4 or 5 stories is the height for wood frame construction?
Typically, you're not going to be able to go 5 stories with wood frame. Right. You're going to, there's a couple manufacturers that are making strong walls and shear walls that are a combination of steel and wood that do enable us to get better values on the lower floors for shear absorption and shear transfer. But once you get over 4 stories, it's a really different building system, and you also have different occupancies that you've got to contend with. The price goes up.
Right.
If you can stay 3 stories, that's why a lot of people are going 3 stories with a subterranean parking area.
Right. Okay.
Because it's a lot easier to move dirt and pour concrete walls than to to put sticks up in the air that high. And then you got egress requirements. Those are changing for life and safety to deal with.
I seem to recall that to make steel construction work, you had to get to at least 7 or 8 stories before it became economical. At least that was 10 years ago when I was dealing with those issues.
I use probably steel in 70 to 80% of my single-family homes that are 1 or 2 story.
Oh, wow.
Because
Okay.
of the cost. It's cheaper to use steel.
Wow.
Than it
Okay,
is-
the
yeah.
economics of it has changed then.
Right.
Super. Okay. So Commissioners, do we have a sense of what the height ought to be in this neighborhood? I don't think 60 feet is probably appropriate. And so I could see 4 stories. Commissioner Carroll?
Well, I would agree with that 60 feet this far into the residential neighborhood would not be appropriate in my mind.
Okay. Commissioner Looney?
I think we have to be careful not to use the definition of a story, but as a specific building height.
Okay.
Because you can go with an 8-foot ceiling with a 12-inch floor framing system, and you can do some creative things with stories. Carlsbad and the county has a ordinance that states that if you have a ceiling height over a certain distance, they count that as a floor. Even though it's a 2-story volume, they consider that living space as a second level. Oh, wow. So I think we need to be mindful that we put a specific height on there rather than stories.
Okay. Would 40 feet be too much in this area?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay.
I think if we keep it around 35 feet, I think that works.
Okay.
35 is a citywide height limit for most of the zones.
Okay.
Because that 60 feet is way up there. It's just
It
way
is.
up there. I mean, if you've got a 2-acre parcel, 60 feet, you can design it to where it's going to be compatible to most of the surrounding structures. But if you're dealing with anything less really than 3/4 of an acre, it gets challenging.
Do we think, it sounds like we're in somewhat agreement on a 35-foot height limit. Do you think that applies to the other areas that we've talked about? Commissioner Carroll?
With Transit District West, the west portion of that exhibit, I would agree with that. But towards the easterly portion, I don't have as much issue as with that growing. As the closer you get to the streets and the transit. But I agree that western portion of the Transit District West, 60 feet again does not feel appropriate. For the Paula Vista exhibit 4D, I'm torn on it. I think, on the easterly side of Paula Vista Drive, I think, anything goes there as far as going up to that 60-foot height, because I think that could be a real mixed-use opportunity. And I'm just kind of on the fence about the westerly side of Paula Vista Drive. What else?
I was thinking that Natal Way that backs up, that also provides access to the CVS, that might be an appropriate location for mixed use, to have ground floor commercial along that street frontage. But then the rest of the parcel should probably be a multifamily at a higher density. Yeah, right in here. That street fronts on CVS and the McDonald's parking lot. So
yeah, that's
I don't know
the area I was talking about too.
Yeah.
That trapezoid between Paula Vista Drive and Naval Way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How do you feel about height and density on the remainder of the study area?
Which area are you talking about?
The rest of the area off of Paula Vista Drive, either side? There is multifamily in the neighborhood, several okay projects, some not so much, and then a whole bunch of single-family dwellings. There's the old trailer park that's there, and then I thought I'd been on every street in Vista, and I found Ripon Way, and I was surprised. But so there's some small multifamily projects that are back in there that were they were somewhat nice. Yeah. So I'm thinking for that area along the western side of Paula Vista that we support the existing apartment densities there and make everything somewhat consistent along there. I know it's within the quarter mile of the transit station, so I'm really torn by that because we could provide transit densities in these areas and really support the transit line. So how about we suggest a 35-foot height limit in this neighborhood?
So you're referring to the west side of Paula?
Yes.
Vista? Okay.
Yeah.
I personally like that.
Okay.
But except, over there against Mercantile, between Rincon and Mercantile, there's a few parcels there that have the potential to add to Paseo Santa Fe more in some way, and
that's true.
And I don't know that would really be a mixed use, but definitely a taller fixture there would
You could
be
almost take
okay with
those
me.
lots that front Mercantile, just those front lots back and keep that up as a multi-zone and maybe a higher density or a higher building height.
Is this the kind of discussion you were looking
I'm
for?
following
Or?
you. I got it. I'll go back through and summarize what I got at the end, and we can see if we hit everything.
Okay.
Where the existing trailer park is, they've got a great line of sight from Santa Fe.
Mm-hmm.
Even if that other empty lot, there's two empty lots on either side of Paula Vista. But even if those are developed, there's still a line of sight to that corner, which could be potentially valuable.
Yeah.
And it would draw people in off of Paula Vista. I mean, off of Paseo, Santa Fe.
I agree. That's a good idea. I like that. All right. Any other comments on this neighborhood? Commissioner Jackal? Oh, go ahead. Within the quarter mile, here's where I'm at on that. Within the quarter mile of the transit station, I think we need to move towards trying to get people to ride transit instead of driving cars, and giving someone flexibility with the parking would make sense there. Outside of that, I would agree with you. We have to maintain and provide sufficient parking for, if they have the dual masters, then they've got a plan for that. So, but inside, I would take a look at the 8.5 width on the parking space. In this town, they used to be 10 feet wide a long time ago. So,
well, he had suggested 8 feet, and you're talking 8.5, but I personally like 9.
Like 9? Okay. All right. Any other comments? All right. Mr. Connolly, you want to summarize where we came from
if I can do this here.
tonight?
So just to recap the parking discussion, what I heard from Commissioner or Chairman Rossler was that you were in support of leaving the parking standards in place within a quarter-mile radius of the Sprinter stations, but that you could potentially want to increase parking elsewhere in the specific plan. I didn't get that from the other commissioners. Is that where you wanted to go?
I wouldn't think in the downtown area that we'd want to increase the parking standards there either. But outside of that, I'd be open to that.
So the specific plan map here shows a quarter-mile radius of the Sprinter stations in those orange circles around the station locations. And so I believe that's a quarter mile.
It says.
Might be a half. I'm sorry? It's a quarter. Thank you, Patsy. So those areas that wouldn't be in that circle would be affected by that parking change potentially, but that includes a good portion of Paseo Santa Fe.
Right.
So that would be a little bit concerning at the staff level. But
we've got
happy
parking
to
issues in those areas. I mean, you've got the main intersection of downtown. That's where we have the parking problems. Yes, we're close to transit systems, but I just see that's where, within that quarter-mile diameter, or the circle, there's just a lot of parking issues. And there's a lot of properties that could be developed that parking issue isn't going to go away if we keep the parking where it is. That's my opinion. I mean, what commission meeting have we attended where parking hasn't been mentioned? Every night. So I just think we need to look at that maybe a little bit harder. People are going to drive if they have a car, no matter how close that train station is. And as long as, if we're in Singapore and it costs you $10,000 to get a permit to buy a car, and that car has to be within 8 years of it being new, the rules are different. But, it works in Singapore, but we don't have that issue here. So I think we've got to deal with the cars that we have, and how do we remedy this issue to where it's not going to be perfect, it's never going to be perfect, but I think we can do better than what we currently have. We just have to find a method and a solution.
Okay. Commissioner Garrison?
Commissioner Looney just stated what I was going to say. Thank you.
Very good.
Okay, so I'm still not hearing anybody that wants to change the parking standards. I've got a couple commissioners telling us that they're concerned about it, but it would be good to hear from the commission overall if you want to really evaluate making that change and maybe report that to the council when this goes before them in February or March. It would be good to have consensus or at least a majority on that particular issue.
I think it needs to be looked at. I don't think we're going to solve it tonight, but it has to be looked at.
Okay. Look at increasing the standards. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll go with that, and we'll make some recommendations. We'll come back to you, whatever the council decides, with a final decision or direction, and we'll have an actual amendment before you next time that you can consider. So just to summarize what I heard, mixed use is a concern in a lot of these residential neighborhoods. So I think, and you want to look at it in the areas that have high pedestrian usage and there's commercial activity.
Sure.
I think at the staff level, we can look at that issue and make some recommendations as far as where we think it's appropriate and come back with that. The parking, again, we'll reevaluate. We'll look at, I can also look at what the other cities are doing, but I can pretty much tell you the other cities have all got reduced parking standards in proximity to their transit centers, so I don't think we're going to get a lot of direction from what some of the other North County cities are doing, but I will evaluate that, and I can certainly report back on what options we have with parking. And then specifically to the areas, the Transit District West, it sounded like the homes off of Camino Patricia in the west side of this neighborhood, you were looking at 35-foot height limits and lower density, which would equate to 21 to the acre. To the area east of that, along Terracina and Getting, you were okay with a 45-foot height limit and leaving the density at 40 DU per acre. So far, so good?
Yes.
Okay. West Gateway, Plymouth, 21 units to the acre and 35-foot height limit.
Yes.
And Paseo Santa Fe, Palo Vista, the east side of Palo Vista. Let's see, mixed use along Civic Center and Natal was okay. And the area to the east was to stay at 40 DU to the acre and 60 feet in height, as well as the square area between Rincon and Mercantile. But the remainder, that triangular area that's south of Rincon and west of Palo Vista, was to be left at 35 and a density reduction of 21.
Yes.
Okay. I got it. Did I miss anything there?
Anything else? I think,
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Does it help?
Yeah, well, I'll include it all in the summary report to the City Council. I expect to present this to them on February 27th, if everything goes as planned, and I will summarize the Commission's recommendations.
Okay, very good. So that will conclude our public hearings for this evening, and the next item on our agenda is Commission staff discussion, council actions, and reports. Mr. Conley?
So we have one meeting on one item on February 20th that we have to convene for. It's the Climate Action Plan update. And I will summarize the information that I presented at the community meeting that we held on January 22nd and get any feedback that the Commission wants to provide before we move it forward to the Council for discussion at their level. And then we'll go back through the process for a number of community meetings. But it's sort of an opportunity to explain what we've done with our existing plan, what our intentions are with an update to the plan, and what feedback we're looking for from the public and the Commission. So it's the only item on the agenda. It'll be a discussion. Probably won't be too long of a night, but I want to make sure the Commission has an opportunity to look at it. Following that, on March 6th, we will not have a meeting. It's the night the Council is going to look at goals for the next 2-year period. And so the meeting after the 20th will be canceled. And I'm not sure what we have coming up after that in March, so I'll let you know on the 20th. As far as updates for the community, there's a lot of construction coming. We expect that 100 Main Street is going to start grading here probably early next month. The property at the corner of Foothill and East Vista Way, the Delpy Corner property, is getting close to finishing their grading permit. They should start probably before the end of this month. The project down on Palomar or San Marcos Boulevard, the hotel and condos, they just got a grading permit, I think today or yesterday, so they're going to start. So we're going to start seeing a lot more construction activity around the city, and we have a map online that shows what those projects are and what's planned there. If people want to find out what's going on, they can check our interactive map on the city's website.
Very
That's
good.
all I have.
Commissioner Bell?
That was earlier.
Okay. Commissioner Jackal? And Commissioner Looney?
Question about the street improvements on Paseo.
Sure.
As was mentioned earlier, there's a lot of empty commercial buildings on these little posted size properties that are vacant. What's happening to those? Is the city buying any of those, or does the city own any of those?
We actually own most of them.
Okay.
We purchased some around Guajome to accommodate the roundabout, which includes the two auto repair facilities. So those have been vacated. Those are going to be demolished, as well as the building next to them to the south. The new restaurant there will be the last remaining building. Everything else that's to the north of that will be demolished on that side of the street. Okay. And then all those properties south of Guajome to the city's parking lot, they're all those postage stamp lots that have buildings that front the street. We've bought the majority of those because we originally intended to connect Terrace and Guajome with a roundabout.
Okay.
But we've since relocated, redesigned that plan, and we're keeping Guajome at its current location. That's where the roundabout will go. There was a utility company that owns a parcel in there that has a huge underground line that sweeps into that property and a number of facilities for switching station. It's highly expensive to relocate. So we shifted our plan, but in doing so, we purchased all those properties with the intent of moving the streets together. Now we're looking for a developer to do another mixed-use type project down there, and we're currently actively working with Community Housing Works on a possible development in those vacant parcels between Guajome and Mercantile and South Santa Fe.
Well, that'll be, I think, a great visual improvement to remove those structures.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for the update.
Is this Joni or Ms. Turley?
I'm trying to confuse you. It's actually me. Just had a couple of announcements that I wanted to make, reminders. One is the Planning Commissioners Academy. That's going to happen in Monterey this year. I believe some of you might have gone there in past years or other locations, San Jose, Pasadena, etc. This one will be held from April 4th to the 6th, and there is a registration and a housing deadline of March 2nd. So in case you are interested, I have a brochure here, although I could probably give you the website. You can go on the californiacities.org/events and look up about information about the actual conference, the sessions that they're having. Seems like there's some interesting ones in here, so take a look at it. And if you are interested, we have space for 2 commissioners like usual, and just let us know, or as soon as you can anyway, so Joni can start, setting it up and things of that nature. The other one is just a reminder, there's a Planning Commission City Council joint dinner on February 21st. So hope to see you all there at 6:30, usual place at Shadow Ridge Country Club. That's it. Thank you.
Very good. Anything else, commissioners? Commissioner Garrison?
Yes, I wanted to bring to the commission's attention something that I've read in the paper. First of all, I've read a lot about the region needs homes, and a lot of the comments relate to regulatory environment. And as everyone knows, last year the state passed AB 494 and SB 229, which allowed for granny flats without increased parking. There is a bill before the Senate now, Senate Bill 35, that basically takes the planning and density decisions out of the cities and gives it to the state. I contacted Senator Bates' office, and she said it's early, but I submitted that to Mr. Conley, and I don't know if he has any comments on it, but it has the potential to basically take all of those decisions out of our hands, even though it probably doesn't look good right now. But with the pressure on housing and the supposed regulatory problems with building housing, it wouldn't surprise me to get some momentum on that bill.
So I think he's referring to SB 827. Is that the one? Yeah. So Senator or Assemblyman Weiner, I believe, LA's Assemblyman, introduced a bill that's brand new. It just opened up, but essentially it would allow any property within, I believe, a quarter mile of a high transit location to build up to 85 feet in height without regard of the existing zoning or any city design standards that apply. And the definition of what a high transit location is any transit center or any bus stop with 15-minute headways, which would be all of North Santa Fe and our 2 transit centers for Vista. So as I told Commissioner Garrettson, I seriously doubt that the state is going to do something that drastic, but it's out there and they will be looking at it.
Actually, it's Senate Bill 35 by Scott Weiner from San Francisco.
35 is the one that just got approved that's in effect. That's the one that streamlines planning applications that meet certain affordability requirements and provides for prevailing wage.
And I thought in the editorial it listed probably half of the cities in the county that hadn't met their housing goals.
Yes.
And the 2 that had were the city of San Diego and Chula Vista, but I didn't see Vista listed on either side. My sense is that we have met our housing goals.
Well, it depends on what you consider
goal.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't met our affordable housing requirements, so we have categories in each affordability segment. And so we've met our overall number, but they're all above moderate units. So we're great in the above moderate category. We're not doing so great in the moderate, affordable, and low and very low categories. So.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, thank you, John.
Thanks.
We will stand adjourned until February 20th.